consider buying your processed oboe and bassoon cane from those friendly folks over at Barton Cane. Processed with care and precision for your everyday reed-making needs. Take the pain and injury out of reed-making by letting Barton Cane do the hard, repetitive, boring stuff. Free up time for practicing, happy hours, hikes, baking, and spending time with friends and family. Barton Cane, here for you. Visit www.bartoncane.com.
Specializing in the finest assortment of oboes, clarinets, bassoons, and their accessories, RDG Woodwinds serves musicians around the world. Their employees are all professional musicians who have a deep knowledge of the products that they sell. RDG's repair shop has an international reputation with a combined 100 plus years of service among the 5 repair technicians. Plain and simple, RDG provides excellent products and fabulous customer service. Visit them at rdgwoodwinds.com. They look forward to working with you.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
a podcast for oboists,
bassoonists,
and the people who love them.
Hey, girl.
Hey. Oh, my goodness. It feels like you've been here, there, and everywhere since I saw you last.
That's because I have. And also, if you notice a difference in audio quality, I can't find my microphone. It is in a box somewhere. I fully intended to separate it and just packing everything.
Yeah, you're in the midst of a 3-phase cross-country move.
Truly.
Also, there was a period of time when there was something with my microphone and I was like, I can fix it. And just kind of stubbornly insisted that I could fix it, that I had terrible, not podcast mic quality. And you know what? It's a free service. Y'all can just deal with it.
And this transition is shortly coming to an end. So at some point, I will find my microphone. So by the next episode, you will have regularly expected audio quality, whether that's good or not.
Well, you get what you get and you don't get upset. You're more apologetic than me.
Oh my God, yes. We are in phase 2 of a 3-phase move. Have I talked about this on the pod yet?
I think the last time they heard from you, you were in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
But you were recently back in the South.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us your journey.
Okay, so we labored sigh. Here we go. We left Hattiesburg. We sold the house. And we're very lucky in that we have a place to stay in Tucson, Arizona that is free. I'm sure I've talked about that on the podcast. We were like, cool, we are not renting back our own house. We are going to go stay in this free space in Arizona.
Because there was a lag in time between your old dwelling closing and your new dwelling becoming available.
Almost a month.
Mm-hmm.
Almost a month. So we drove 3 days across the country with all of our stuff and all of our dogs and loaded our stuff into the garage in Tucson where it has lived since. And then I just got back. So I just got back into Tucson yesterday, but I was finishing a recording project at Ole Miss in Oxford, Mississippi for a week. So I went from swamp to desert to North Swamp. I don't know.
Delta?
Delta. But
back to desert.
And
then mountains.
And then mountains.
And then for IDRS.
Yeah.
Mountains. Different mountains.
So your girl is tired. She is tired. This recording project has been a few years in the making. We recorded it a couple of years ago. You know, it was this woodwind quintet transcription project. And
Mhm.
I mean, it's fabulous. Like the transcriptions are fabulous. I cannot wait until it finally gets released. But through a series of events, we had to get together again this summer and re-record about half of the album.
Mhm.
So that is what we did. And I always feel like I struggle with reeds, but I think my lack of reed making routine lately,
Mm.
plus the changes in humidity and altitude, I really underestimated how difficult that would be.
Mhm.
Like it made me think like the level of difficulty and struggle that I
Mhm.
had with my reads this last week, I was like, oh, no, I'm a good read maker usually. Like I have not had to work this hard to produce sound in years. So I was just like, oh no, I think my perception was skewed. Like I was actually doing really well for a
I'd kill
long
for one of those
time.
reads now.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I don't recall in recent memory the last time I have had to work this hard to play the elbow.
Yeah.
So, but we made it through. I think the final product will be great, and hopefully it will be released in the near future. But yeah, I mean, it was a really interesting perspective to have. It's like, oh no, you think that you're not good at this, but most of the time you're really good at this because you have not had to work this hard in quite a while.
So I have a question about the recording process. So you all recorded it, but I guess one question I've always had about chamber groups that are that large, because when you and I recorded, we did our takes, and then the editing we did together and we
Mhm,
agreed upon takes.
mhm.
And so there's the like sometimes it's a good take for one person, it's not great for another. You times that by five, it seems like the
Mhm.
potential for disaster. So have you just nominated a person to you trust their judgment, you're not going to
Yeah,
be there?
basically.
That seems like the easiest, I would bet.
Yeah, basically. That's basically what it has to be.
Hmm.
Um, and then, of course, we'll all listen to the product that they end up with. And if
Hmm.
there's anything major, I'm sure we can go back and fix it. But like, it's just such a negotiation. And a lot of these pieces have voice. So it's six people, not five.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm sort of managing my expectations in terms of like perfection. Like I
Hmm.
can't expect them to pick my personal best takes every time.
Right.
Um, but so far there has been one leader on this project. So he has been like the grant writer and the organizer and we, like so he did the editing of the previous iteration of pieces, and so he's going to be doing the editing for these too. So, and he also did all the arranging. So it's kind of his baby,
Hmm.
and so it's a little bit easier to take a step back and be like, okay, well, this is a group effort, and I kind of love the idea of not expecting it to be perfect
Hmm.
because so much of the time like we get so wrapped up in like, well, I can't show that I ever make a mistake. And I know live performance is different from recording, and of course you always want recording to be as perfect as possible, but it's kind of nice to like let go of that sense of control and be like, well, this is a group. This is not, the Galit Countess show. So
Hmm.
like relax.
Yeah, well, and sometimes ignorance is bliss. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? If you're just presented
Hmm.
with one, here's the final product, and you haven't heard, oh, I actually like that other take 2.7% more. You don't
Hmm.
mourn its loss. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Sometimes, yeah, taking a step back and allowing that part of the process to be done for you is nice.
And this has taken so long to get
Hmm.
done that at this point, I'm like, well, done is better than perfect. I want these arrangements out there.
Yeah.
I want this project I want all of the work that we put into this to show for something. So I'm like, okay.
But so you flew home yesterday.
Hmm. I immediately became dehydrated. I walked off the plane and I was like, oh, I'm extremely thirsty. It's like the air is trying to murder you here.
And how long until you head out to Colorado?
Okay, so here's the timeline. You and I are recording this on Wednesday,
Yes.
June 26th. We
You
are
arrived
picking
home
up,
yesterday on Tuesday.
yes, we are picking up the truck at 3 p.m. today. Tomorrow, we have hired movers because we got smart from the last one. We have hired people to come load the stuff onto the truck tomorrow. Friday, we are starting day one of this road trip. Saturday is arrival day two. We are staying in Airbnb for a few days. So Sunday is a day off. Monday, Becky starts her new job. Tuesday, we close on the condo. When, oh, Wednesday, no. Tuesday, we close on the condo and move into the condo. And Becky will have already started her job.
So we're actually recording this pretty darn early because we literally had to look at your schedule and be like, when will time allow for you to record a 10-minute dish? Because it was a legitimate question and concern with everything you have going on right now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But it's been as smooth as we could have hoped for. Knock on wood, fingers crossed. Yeah, it's been fine. And we've been able to spend time with family here while we're in Tucson. And we actually know quite a few people in the northern Colorado area, which we didn't know before, but I actually have quite a few connections who are out there. So it'll be cool. It'll be really cool to finally get there and get started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost over.
It's almost done.
Wow.
So if I sound like a mad woman, that's why.
AC/DC Reads is a one-woman bassoon reed workshop in Minnesota run by Dr. Ariel Detweiler, producing over 1,500 reeds per year. Selling beginner bassoon reeds, advanced bassoon reeds, and contrabassoon reeds, AC/DC Reads are hailed by customers for their even intonation, ease of response in all registers, warm tone quality, and strong low register. Every reed is made from tube cane processed in-house to Ariel's specifications using Rigati or Lavaro cane and a Rieger 1A shape. You'll also find bassoon-themed gifts in the shop, including greeting cards, stickers, artistic prints, and the ever-popular Black Wing bassoon pencil. Make sure to follow AC/DC Reads on Instagram, where Ariel posts artistic photos and educational stories about her everyday experiences with reed making. AC/DC Reads is a proud sponsor of Double Reed Dish, sharing positive and uplifting interviews to inspire and connect the bassoon community around the world. Find AC/DC Reads at www.acdcreads.com or at retailers like Chemical City Double Reeds, Midwest Musical Imports, or Reed Supplies Canada. Try out AC/DC Reads today and let the reed do the work.
Chemical City Double Reeds is a full-service double reed shop specializing in the sale of instruments, cane, accessories, and sheet music. Double Reed Dish listeners can enjoy free shipping with code DRDISH. Visit them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or online at www.chemicalcityreeds.com.
We are thrilled to welcome to the podcast bassoonist Per Hannevold. Welcome, Per.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on the program.
We are honored that you're here talking with us. Our first question is asking how you came to play your instrument. So can you tell us how you were introduced to the bassoon?
Well, in Norway, it's a big band thing. I mean, every city has a band. The schools have bands, and I grew up in a band. I started playing the trumpet like my dad, and then I switched to trombone, and then to euphonium, then to clarinet, and then I think I was about 13 or 14 years old. I heard the Hungarian Dance by Liszt.
Mm.
Ba-da-da-dee, ba-da-da-dee, ba-da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, bum-ba, with that strange sounding instrument. And I couldn't get it out of my head. And it was a bassoon. I found out it was a bassoon. And since then I was totally sold, just hate to play that instrument. So I think my brother had started playing the oboe like a year before. And then I started playing the bassoon. And so I played actually bassoon and trombone together for like 2 or 3 years before I had to let the trombone go, unfortunately, and play the bassoon, always only play the bassoon, because that's where the gigs were. Plus, it was so boring to play trombone and have so much rest.
So when did you decide that you wanted to be a professional musician, and what inspired you to choose this career path?
Well, we had in Norway at that time in NRK, which is like BBC in England, like the public radio, the public radio system. Mm-hmm. And at that time, they still had money. They had a youth orchestra, like a recruiting orchestra for the Norwegian Radio Orchestra, Symphonic Orchestra. Wow. And so I auditioned and got into that orchestra. And that was a great thing, because they used us as a training place for recording, for television recordings and all that. So we got to do a lot of stuff. We were also in the series of the Oslo Philharmonic, the children's concerts and family concerts. So we did like 4 or 5 concerts a year for those, and that was a great experience too. So that was how it started, and that was simultaneously as I did high school. And I was originally gonna go to a technical high school, to a technical school, to become an engineer like my dad. He had an engineering company, but then I always say the music took me, so decided to go into music full time instead.
Can you walk us through your training and educational journey?
Yeah, well, I had started up, since the band movement is very active, bringing in great teachers all the time. Even through junior high and high, we had really high level of instructions and with good people. And then we also had later on, when I started to go to Oslo to play in that NRK youth orchestra, they provided teachers for us from the Oslo Phil, and which I sort of stayed on after high school and continued to take lessons. And so I did that for 4 or 5 years, up through high school, and then after that as well. Yeah, and then I joined the military. We had mandatory military at that time. Mm-hmm. So I played for 1 year in the Norwegian Norwegian King's Guard, which is like a band that goes with the king when he travels, and it goes to like the Edinburgh military tattoo, the military tattoos around the world. So we did a lot of traveling, and also did a lot of playing, high level playing. Mm. So that, like 1 year, more or less, as a professional there. Mm-hmm. And then I did some undergrad studies at the Oslo Music Conservatory, and then they opened up a job in the Norwegian Radio Orchestra, and just for fun, I just decided to audition, and I won the job. So then that was it, I just had to start working. So I was there like 5 years, and in that time I also spent like almost like a year in New York studying with Harold Goltzer at Juilliard as a guest student. This was like in the mid-70s.
What inspired you to go to the United States to study? Because, not to be self-deprecating, but you don't hear a lot about Europeans coming to the US to study classical music.
Well, to tell you the truth, my brother studied oboe, as I told you, and he used to study. He studied with Carl Steins in the Berlin Philharmonic in Berlin. which is like probably one of the greatest oboe sounds. You know, I know Americans could differ in opinions, and as a person with one foot in both camps, I love both. I've been a colleague with Dick Woodhams for 20 years in Aspen, and Elaine Duwas. I love that sound, and I love the Berlin sound, the oboe, you know, Schellenberger and Lothar Koch and the Berlin sound. But then I went down there, and it was at that time Günther Piesk, who was principal in the Berlin Philharmonic, and I just hated the way he sounded. It was too stuffy, and it was just not a sound that I liked. And he used to say, "Jeden Tag ein dicker Rohr," meaning every day a thicker reed.
Oh God.
So I thought, I'm not so sure about this. I'm not so sure. So then I went down to compete in the ARD competition in '74, and I met a bassoonist from New York, Andrew Cordell, who had been studying. He went to Juilliard. He became later a Geneva winner, and a terrific bassoonist. And he said, so I befriended him, and he said, "Well, why don't you come to New York and study with my teacher, Harold Goltzer?" And I said, "Yeah, why not?" And I decided to do that, and I became really good friends with him as his student, and we kept in touch for many, many years till we met again when I started going to Aspen in the summer, because he had retired there, so he lived in Aspen, actually Carbondale, when he retired. And then I remember so well, he said, "Per, no, we are colleagues. You may call me Harold." And it took me like 3 years to do that, you know.
Yeah. I was just going to ask if that was difficult to do. I can't.
It was almost impossible, I tell you. You know, it was almost impossible because, you know, for him, he was up there for me, you know, at that time. You know, I mean, so when he said, "You can call me Harold," I just couldn't believe it. You know, I always referred him to at home him as Mr. Goltzer. So even my kids thought his first name was Mr. So then after 5 years in the radio orchestra, I auditioned for the principal job in Bergen in '79, and I got that, and has been there ever since. 45 years principal bassoon in Bergen. Yeah. So that's the short version.
So there's lots of directions we can go. So I'm sure that I will ask a follow-up, and then Jackie will. So, you know, be prepared for this to go in lots of directions.
Come on, just go.
But can you tell us about, you know, your evolution in that role as a young professional, and then, you know, over the course of 45 years? I mean, I can't imagine the amount of experience and wisdom and lessons that you've learned in that time.
Yeah, it's you know, I've always been very curious about everything, you know, I mean, about how people play, and I always it's been my opinion, and I always tell my students, you know, I mean, listen to everybody. Even if you don't agree, you should know why you disagree. And then you should make a note of it. And then perhaps in 10 years, you'll turn around and you see that perhaps it wasn't such a bad idea after all. You know, if there is something that you really have an objection to, you know. So, I mean, everybody has something to teach, is my opinion, you know. And you need... my goal was never to have my students sound like me, but to have them sound like them, you know. But because I always say, go and take from people what you need, what you like, and make it your own. Because you're never going to be a copy of anybody. You should be yourself, as your fullest, with your fullest potential.
Mm-hmm.
So I always try to listen to people, and I've been around a lot of good people, and I've been very fortunate with the people I've been around. Like I met very early, like John Miller, who is like a fantastic bassoonist and human being. So I learned to know him also on a personal note. He came to Bergen with Keith, for those 30 years. And we used to go around and come to Minnesota, Minneapolis, and we were in residence at the University of Minnesota for 25 years with the Bergen Wind Quintet. And then you meet a lot of people, that don't necessarily need to be bassoonists. They can be clarinetists, they can be oboists, they can be flutists, And I think one of the good things for me personally was when I came to Bergen, we had like 5 principals. All of us wanted to play chamber music, and I think that part of being a musician is so important. If you play in an orchestra, you sit all day, and the conductor can never really comes around to you because he has to deal with other things, and then you sit there and kind of unfulfilled, and then you go and have a quintet rehearsal, and your shoulders sort of fall back down, and you can play a chord that is in tune, and you just can relax, and play with people you enjoy being with, and people that really has a high standard and that you are choosing. Chamber music has to be with people that you like if it's supposed to last. I used to say when we did the master classes that an average lifespan of a woodwind quintet is 18 months. Because by that time, everybody are so sick and tired of hearing the flutist telling people to play softer, So, I mean, you need to get around that. And we had very early on, we had a great chamber music coach from Hannover, music schule in Hannover, and his name was what was his name? Well, he was a chamber music coach down there, and he came up to Bergen, and he balanced the group. He balanced it so he could sit and listen to us and say, little bit more horn, little less bassoon, little bit more flute, little less oboe. Perhaps if the oboe sits there instead of there, that would help. Could the bassoon be in the back instead of the side? That would be good. Horn would then play in the back. All these little things, and it sort of balanced us. And then we used that concept for the rest of our career to balance the group. And that was so important. So we kept playing together for 35 years, and we're still friends. We're meeting regularly and have dinners together and just having a good time. No, the flute player, she's retired. My brother is retired. I just retired, and horn player Eileen, she's an American, by the way. She's been playing with us she's a rookie. She's only been with us for 20 years. So that's been great, and they're all good. So I learned from them, and we learned from each other. So that was for me a very good and a good way of learning. And then we had good conductors over the years. I mean, not only good, of course. There are more not so good than really good, but there are some good ones, that actually have something to teach you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting because for many people, having a woodwind quintet as active as y'all were, or being principal in an orchestra like that, like either one would be kind of full-time or enough. And so it's very inspiring that you all were kind of always wanted more, and we're still so excited by the music making. And I mean, did it ever feel like work?
It's that's a beauty of it. I mean, when I retired from the orchestra, I sort of gave a speech to the orchestra, to the musicians, and I said that after 45 years sitting in that chair, it's it's um, it's it's not my identity, but I feel at home there, and I always enjoyed it, going to work every day, and it's if I could choose again, I would do exactly the same thing. Playing chamber music, playing orchestra. You can't do only the one, or because you need that diversity, to playing orchestra. Then, as I explained, it's nice to come and play chamber music. Playing chamber music, it's nice once in a while to sort of let go, not have to decide everything like you do in a quintet, and you can come into orchestra and just go along with the rest of the group. But also when we experienced and practiced new stuff with the quintet, we would always do, like, one day flute, she had really something on her she wanted to say. Next day perhaps the clarinetist would say something. So one day the oboe would say. So we would always do turns, so it doesn't becomes like one person talks all the time, because then it's not 18 months anymore, then it's 15 months. Everybody should have an ownership to what you do.
Additionally, you're also extremely active as a soloist, and so I'd love to ask some questions about your efforts, specifically in premiering new works, which is also, not to generalize, but not something we always associate with major orchestral principles, is an enthusiasm for new music and for premieres and whatnot. So could we hear a little bit about, I guess, your approach to an enthusiasm for new music and commissioning, and then I might have some specific questions about specific pieces.
Yeah, well, I've been very fortunate, because people have approached me and asked me if they could write something for me, and I said, sure, absolutely, go ahead. And then they would come with sketches, and I would look at it and say, what if you do this and do that, and perhaps a little bit more of this, like an introduction here. So I've sort of been fortunate to be sort of part of the process. So it's not a finished product that comes in my mailbox, and I start reading. It's something that we've been working on for some time. The latest was that Sevog piece that's on that link that you probably saw, which was premiered back in 21 or something, I think it was. Yeah. And which was during the pandemic. So it was, you see, the orchestras were spread out. But he had worked with us. He wrote a piece for the Bergen Woodwind Quintet like 20 years ago or so. And then he said, I really would like to write a piece for bassoon and orchestra, because he liked the sound of the instrument. Who can blame him? And so then he did that, and then we worked together, and we came up with that piece that I recorded in 2021, which is a wonderful piece. I hope more people will play it. So that's one. Another piece you might be referring to is the Maslanka Sonata. We were on tour with the Bergen Wind Quintet in the 1990s. And we were up in Moorhead College up in northern Minneapolis. It's like the twin city of Fargo. Yeah, next over the river. And the bassoon professor and saxophone professor was Russell Peterson. And he is also a Geneva winner on saxophone, but he's also a really great bassoonist. And he said, we played a concert up there, and he said, you guys should really look into those Maslanka quintets, because they're just great music. And I'd never even heard about him before. So we got the number 2, I think, first, and we played it, and we loved it immediately. And then we did number 1 and did number 3. And then we decided we're just going to record them. And we asked BIS, which is our recording brand, And we said, we really would like to record it. And Robert von Barr, who is the owner of that company, he said, it's great music, go ahead. So we recorded those three quintets, and they came out really nice, I have to say. It's really just wonderful music. And then I invited Maslanka to Aspen to come to the music festival. And I said, you should come, and I will have three groups prepared with your three quintets, and you will coach each one of them and talk about your philosophy of composing and
Wow.
about music in general. And he did, and he came to Aspen, and it was just a wonderful experience. The way he talked about music and life.
Mm-hmm.
He said that he would every morning he would go into his studio, and he would sit down and we would play a Bach chorale on the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would sit down at the table and he would just tap in and write down what came to him. He wasn't sort of building a piece. He was just writing down what came to him. And so that was so interesting. And he said that every time he wrote for winds, he felt the door open. Every time he wrote for strings, he felt the door close.
Interesting.
That's he was a very spiritual person.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how I'm sure you have played some of his symphonies
Mm-hmm.
in your schools, probably. Yeah. I mean, like the Fourth Symphony is a really wonderful piece. When you play, clarinetists play on the barrel,
Mm-hmm.
So he uses that in the second quintet. I remember when we started working on that, our clarinetist, who was a great clarinetist, he started working with that barrel thing, and we said, okay, this is how we're going to do it. You're going to record the other four parts, and you're going to take the recording with you home, and then you're going to practice and tell us when you know how to play it. We can't sit here and listen to this. So we did. I came back, and the recording is great. I mean, then you could do it 100 times, instead of having us listen to it all those times.
Mm-hmm.
So then after we did those recordings and after he came to Aspen, he asked me if he could write a bassoon sonata for me.
Wow.
Because he really liked the sound of the bassoon. And I said, yes, absolutely, I would love it. And then we had the bassoon symposium coming up, I think in March in Bergen. And then I was just waiting for the music. And like 8 days before the symposium opening concert, the music arrived.
Oh my God.
So I had to learn that piece in 8 days.
Oh my God.
That final movement is a lot to learn in 8 days.
Yeah, it is. But when you have to, you have to. Fear is a great motivator.
That's true.
Yeah. So I recorded. So that was a premiere in Bergen, and then I think this was in 2005. So then I did the U.S. premiere in the IDRS convention in Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm. So
if you go online on the IDRS website and go back to 2005, you can hear the premiere. It's there. It was an opening concert that year. So, but since then I played it several times, and I get 3 years older every time I play it. But then it's it's very rewarding, It's
it
very
takes
rewarding.
years from your life every time.
It does.
you got to train for that one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a wonderful piece. It's so rewarding to play,
Yeah. And such a contribution. Thanks for telling us about that.
Absolutely. It's wonderful music. Wonderful music.
So I wonder, since we're on the topic of repertoire, I wonder if you can share with us any favorite pieces that you have to perform besides the Maslanka, any hidden gems of the repertoire that you hope more people will play.
Well, I like all the Vivaldi concertos.
Mm.
Every single one of them. All 30, is it 38 or 39? I think it's 39.
Have you played every single one?
Most of them, I think. And then let me tell you something funny. A friend of mine here in Norway, his name is Robert Runnes. He's also a composer, and was a great bassoonist. He was down in Stavanger for many years. He he said he wanted to write a Vivaldi concerto. Like if Vivaldi had lived for another 10 years and met Rameau and those people that just followed right after Vivaldi. Because, in all the Vivaldi concertos, there are no high Cs.
Mm.
There's never a high C. So he wrote a high C into his concerto, in the middle, in the slow movement. There is a high C. And it's just a wonderful piece. And it might be published now. I'm not so sure, but it's the composer's name is Robert Runnes, Robert Ronnes, and he wrote a lot of things. His son is also a great bassoonist who works down in Germany now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So and he's also a composer, So they are. So, but that piece that Robert wrote was really a good one. I remember I was to a summer camp with him many years ago, and he's a kind of guy who could write a symphony before breakfast.
Oh my God.
So he brought me a piece like in the style of Debussy, that totally like this, and of course I could play it, but it was I still have it because his handwriting was so pretty, so I just could frame it and put it on the wall.
I love it.
Yeah. So that's good. Well, also another piece. There's another piece that I had also commissioned. There is a Chinese woman composer, who came to Aspen one summer, and she wrote a quintet, and it was played by some students, and she invited me to come to hear in the chamber music program. And it was a wonderful piece. It was a great piece. And I said to her, this is just wonderful. I mean, is it possible to get a copy of this? And she said, absolutely. Her name is Xinyan Li, Xinyan. Do you know her?
I've played her pieces. Yes, I've worked with
her.
her.
Yes, you have, of course. So, so she wrote that Musu's burial ceremony for Woodwind Quintet. That's a wonderful piece. That was the first time it was premiered. So we played it with the Bergen Wind Quintet just after that. I think it's on her website still. And then I invited her to come to Bergen, and she wrote a piece for bassoon, string quartet, and Chinese drums, and it's called Mongolian Impressions.
Yeah, that's the one I played. Mm-hmm.
You played it? Isn't that a great piece too?
Great piece. Yeah.
So I played it many times, and I also played it in Aspen at the concert there. And she came. Well, she is fantastic, So I just hope that I haven't been in touch with her lately, but she's a wonderful composer that I hope is doing more. I mean, Jackie is probably more familiar with her newer stuff than I am.
I think Mongolian Impressions is the last thing I've played, but I definitely think it should be played more.
Absolutely. No, she's great. She's great. Yeah.
Can we hear a bit about your approach to reed making? People are always curious about, shape and other nerdy things, but also habits or advice or approaches, especially with as much playing and diversity of playing as you've done over your career.
Well, I studied with Lou Skinner, who was like the famous reed maker in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so I studied with him. Actually, it was, the English bassoonist Roger Bernsteingle who told me about him. He came to Oslo and did a class, and I went to hear him talk. And then I took him around town afterwards, and he told me about he told me that this American reed maker that lived up in Maine, who would charge you $1,000 for a week, and he would teach you to make fantastic reeds, and but you had to sign a letter of silence, that you would never teach what he to anybody else what he was teaching. And of course, all that secrecy made me really interesting. So I decided to go up to him, and I remember Goltzer, he wasn't too happy about it. He said, "Oh, that guy was a secrets," and so, "Oh, I wasn't so sure about that." So, but I went up there and I had a wonderful time with him up in Jonesport in Maine. It's one of those lobster villages up along the coast up there. And you had lobster for dinner, almost every day that week. It was just fantastic. His wife was a great cook. So we were making reeds, and we became really, really good friends. And I would come. This first time I was there, I think, was in 1980, and then and then I came back several times. Last time I was there was in 93. And then he died actually at the opening day of the IDRS conference in Minneapolis that year, in 1993. Yeah. And he was great. He could he has like tons of varieties in the reed style. He used to play in the Baltimore Symphony. Then he left and he became a full-time reed maker. Ask all the older bassoonists, they know. And there's also a book out about his reed making procedure. And he wasn't so strict as people would sometimes claim, but he was. He said, "What are you doing? See, how can we make it better?" And that was his style. That I really like that, and because I had already studied with the Goltzer reed making, it was very different from the reed style I had before I came there. I used to have much thicker, much heavier reeds, a little bit the Berlin style, not that much, but still reasonably heavy reeds. So when I started to come to Goltzer, the hard thing was to learn to play on softer reeds. You would think it's harder to learn to play on harder reeds, but it's the other way around, because you have too much pressure, you have too much muscles, and too much of that, So with Skinner and with Goltzer first, and then Skinner, we took the reeds down, and with the Skinner, it was more of the parallel scrape, not a wedge, very thick in the back and thin in the front. But the parallel scrape is thinner in the back and thicker at the tip. So it's more balanced. It's not like this, it's more like this.
Okay.
Meaning you can just play without using any power, So the only power you need to do is the air. So and it's it's always the air that makes the difference, So it's not about like really pushing and using your muscles, but it's about have a free-blowing reed. So that's what I always did. And also Skinner did a lot on the inside of the scrape, he did a lot of that, which is interesting. Instead of taking off wood on the outside, you take off wood on the inside of the scrape. So you can have almost, when you look at the reed, a finished reed, it's like looks totally parallel on the outside. You can follow the same fiber from the back and all the way to the tip.
Wow.
Because everything is on the inside.
So he would do that with the gouge?
Yes, before you put it together.
Got it.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's so known in the oboe circles. I'm sure somebody tried it. I'm sure Tabato did it, at some point.
It sounds similar to, just like adjusting the thickness of the gouge and the type of gouge. And it sounds a little oboe-y to me.
Yeah, well, from the inside, when you have your inner gouger, it's probably parallel, right? But you can also have it so it sort of.
I see what you're saying.
You say
like an internal profile.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah, no, we don't do that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, that's food for thoughts now, huh?
Yeah, that's cool. Now somebody will do it for oboe.
Yeah, absolutely.
I won't do it, but somebody will do it.
Yeah. Well, if you have a good reed, just hold on to it,
That's right.
Put it in the freezer. I remember we had a Italian conductor once. He said to my brother, "Oh, that's a great reed. Go and put it in your bank box for the concert."
Truly.
Well,
Truly.
keeping on the topic of equipment, could we hear a bit about the bassoon you play and how it came into your life?
Well, I started like you with a Püchner bassoon, and I remember in 1971, my family we drove down to Nauheim, and I bought my first Püchner 7444, which was a great instrument, and I had it and I won 2 auditions with it, both in the radio orchestra and in Bergen, and I played it till 81, I think, after a couple of years in Bergen. And the reason I changed, because I never thought I would part with it, because I just loved it. But when I started, first time I came to Bergen, before I won the job, I was there visiting, and the second bassoon who was going to retire, he said, "Do you want to try my instrument?" And he had a Heckel 8366, one of the last from 1939. And I tried it, and immediately this is a much better instrument. I mean, it was like no doubt, And to me, and I'm sure a lot have changed. And I'm a little sad about it, because I just love the Püchner people, the family, and Walter and Josef, and they're just the most wonderful people, all of them. So, but when I got to that Heckel, it was like an eye opener. It was a wonderful instrument, and so I decided, well, if you ever want to sell it, I would be happy to buy it. So after a couple of years, he had retired, and I bought his. He said, "If you want it, you can come and pick it up." Of course, I went by the bank and got the money and got it. And then I played that horn for like 10 years. And the biggest difference was, I don't think you can probably hear any difference in the sound, because I think after a while, every one of us, doesn't matter what we play, we're going to sound the same. I mean, it's just it's a little easier, a little this, a little that, but we're going to sound the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I love to play it, and the difference was that with the Püchner I had to practice all the time. I thought, and so I couldn't take like a day or two off and come back and play well. Then I had to really practice again. With with that Heckel, I could just, after a day or two, I could pick it up and it's still in tune. The instrument had it in it, So I just love that thing about it. And then I had it for some years, and then John Miller said to me, Per, you should have a newer Heckel, because I mean it's an old, might be blown out. He never liked old Heckels. He liked new Heckels. So then I've got a 13,000. I played that for the next 10 years, and I love that instrument too. And but then John started working with the Fox company to build an American bassoon. And actually the bassoon they used is the one I owned, the 13,000. That was the model for the 601 Fox bassoons. So, and I was thinking, I don't think it's fair to music students to have to buy a Heckel to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
Because I mean the price of a Heckel these days, it's just ridiculous. It's like $70, $80, $90, $100,000, and you can get like a professional Fox. There's a lot to say about that, but you can get a really, really good 10-year-old Fox for like $25,000, and they're all in tune. They all sound good, but it doesn't say Heckel on the bell.
Right.
Yeah, and I thought I need to play a Fox to show people that you can sound good on something else than a Heckel.
Right.
since I've been so much around young people, young students, like in Aspen, when we had the best students, best student body in the country in the summers.
Yeah.
When they could hear that I played well on a Fox, I mean, they shouldn't feel so bad,
right,
if they didn't play a heckle.
Right.
Plus, older heckles, it's a chance to take, I mean, they can be awful, can be terrible, but it says heckle.
Right.
And they said, well, I'll learn to play it. And I said, that's not the way it should be.
Mm-mm.
You should take an instrument and it should be, wow. You should have a wow factor when you play it. That's the instrument you need to buy.
It should have a scale that plays in tune.
I know. That's a great starting point, That's a great starting point. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's why I was playing Fox for the more or less the last 20 years of my career, because and it was a copy of my heckle. So I played the heckle at home and I played the Fox at work. And then next month I changed, so I always kept them both. And because they were similar instruments.
That's great to hear. And I think we have a lot of student listeners, and I think it's very good for them to hear an artist of your caliber affirming the validity of all sorts of instrument makers.
Yeah, and so many people, so many makers are working so hard these days, and they're all working towards the same goal. Have a scale that plays in tune,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's as simple as that. That's more. Are we getting close to meaning of life now?
Yeah. We hit it. This is
it. A scale that plays in tune.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
Would you share with us a favorite memory of a past performance?
Well, I mean, I had several comments from that last TV recording that's on that link. Because when we start playing, I'm looking up at the conductor, he's looking down at me, and we are smiling, and because we are sort of on the same, we are on the level, I mean, we are, this is going to be good. We're going to have fun, So that's always a good thing. Never come on stage and be afraid, Life is too short. Just enjoy the time in the limelight. 99% of the audience have no clue anyway.
I'm so glad that you said that.
Was that a perspective you've had to develop over time? Did you ever have to deal with nerves?
No, actually, no. I've been always. This might be an interesting story for our younger listeners. When I grew up in my hometown, the organist in our church, he said, "Oh, Per, why don't you come on every second Sunday? I play a concert in the evening. Why don't you come and play something?" And my brother came and played oboe. We played all sorts of stuff, and they said, "Well, why don't you come on Sunday and play with the mass or something? Just play along with the organ, And by doing that, he built in me a security in playing for people, because that is what most people are afraid of. When they stand up and they say, "Oh, people are listening to me," like a scary thing, instead of, "Hey, come on, I'm going to play for you, come on, enjoy this with me here, So I learned to play for people at an early age. And I got a lot of opportunities because I always said yes. So, and that was a good thing for me. So I never had that problem. I always enjoyed playing, look forward to the concert. Of course, there are things that can be hard, but I mean, nothing is so hard you can't cough there. You can just just go on. Yeah. Talking about good stories, that happened in Aspen once. We played Rite of Spring, and just before we were going to start, actually, I just had started. David Sinman was conducting. Suddenly, a telephone went off right in front of me. And I was thinking, God, whose telephone is on? I mean, I should turn the telephones off before concerts. And I looked at one of my colleagues sitting in front, and she was always the first one to sort of look around, and then suddenly she realized it was her phone.
Oops.
And I was thinking, should I stop playing or should I just continue? This was a rehearsal. Should I stop playing or should I just continue and see what happens? So I just decided, just I'm just gonna keep going and see how they're. And then she turned like dark red up here, So those little things, make your day,
Yeah.
Well, we always conclude with the same question, which is, what advice do you have for a young musician who aspires to have a career like yours?
Be patient. Always remember that we do this because we love it. And it's fun because you can actually measure what you do. I always encourage using recorders, recording yourself, listen to what it is, and learn to be positive, critical, not negative critical, but positive critical. That was good. This can be better. Instead of that old New York style teaching. Oh, that wasn't very good. No, again. No, that wasn't very good. No, again. It was always a negative twist on it. Mm-hmm. Today, I think we had sort of turned, and now we are more like, well, that wasn't so bad. I mean, come on, a little bit more of that could be good, and trying to make it positive. Mm-hmm. So I think that is an important thing to do. And I have to add, during the pandemic when we were closed down, I was thinking to myself, what can I do now to keep going? It's like you have time off and you don't really know how to spend it. Could be like 6 weeks till your next gig or something. You never know. I mean. So what do I do? So what did I do? I took out an etude book that I had, which was from Bernie Garfield. You know those etudes? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And every day I spent 1 hour reading started at number 1, reading it, and then the last 10 minutes I recorded it. Next day I did number 2. Next day I did number 3. So I spent 1 hour every day playing a new Garfield etude, working on it and recording it, and that gave me some really interesting ways of thinking, because if you do this, first of all, you have to do your scales and all that. That's important. That is like something you always have to do. But when you are sick and tired of that, find something and start and try to do something new every day for like and I think there were 32 or something. Is it 32 etudes in that book?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah,
something like that. So then that's going to keep you busy for some time, Mm-hmm. And then you go back and you listen to them and you see that wasn't all that bad, And then you can start from the beginning again and start working on number 1 again. And you can pick some and you can use them. Those etudes are great to use in recitals, as a piece in between, because it's only no piano. You have to drag with you or strings or stuff. So it's a good way to choose music.
Per, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We had an amazing time with you, and we're so grateful.
This was fun. This was fun.
Well, the next time we talk to you, Galit will be settled in, and she'll be able to tell us how it all went.
My brain will be once again attached to my body.
Yes. And we, I don't know how I'm coming out of that. Rate and review on social. I was like, I can swing it. I can attach it, but no, you can't always attach it. please rate and review on Apple Podcast and Spotify and all that good stuff. Actually, I don't know if Spotify even has ratings. It's like 8 years of doing this podcast, and I don't know if you rate and review on Spotify. I don't think you do.
I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
This
We're
is
too
all
old for this.
unnecessary, but I'm keeping it in. Follow on social media, Galit, who's on the next episode.
Oh my God. The next episode was a real personal pleasure. I got to talk to Virginia McDowell.
You just said I got to talk to, as if I wasn't
Can
there
I
too.
do it again?
No, I'm keeping it in. This is the most chaotic ending of a podcast that's ever happened, and they need to be aware.
We talked to, I'm sweating again.
We communally communicated
We
with
both communicated
in community with a member of the Double Reed community.
Virginia McDowell, principal oboe of the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra. Jackie, we got to end this nerd parade right now.
Got to. Go make Reeds.